So hi everybody and welcome back to the C++ tutorial series for absolute beginners. This is video 195 and in this video we're talking about casting again. And we will skip dynamic casting, and the reason for that is because dynamic casting needs inheritance and we have to talk about inheritance first when we are back in classes. And we will also skip this reinterpret cast. Reinterpret cast needs a little bit understanding of underlying bit patterns, and it's a little bit more used in special cases, but you should still read here this explanation. And the reason for that is because in this video we want to talk about explicit type conversion, which is also known as this two syntax here as C-style cast and functional style cast. All right, so before we go into this one here to the explanations, let's make an example with this C-style cast. Let's copy this one. Let's go here. Let's write here our syntax and let's make here a fast example. Double number. So I write here double number. And now I want to cast this to an integer, for example, integer number. And you can see again, new type is our target type, int, and then we write the expression. Expression is all time what has a type and a value, like a variable, for example, and we write it here, and that's it. So you can see that's all we need for a C-style cast, and of course we can print this out. Like old time, it is the out and integer number, and like we expected, it works, right? So, and we know that when we convert from a double to an int, it will be cut off the decimal points, and exactly that happens. But careful, this is per definition, right? So let's go back and we can make the functional cast here as well. Let's make an example for functional too. So you can see it's almost the same. Let's copy this line here, perhaps. Almost the same, not the same. Let's write here too. And the only difference here is about these two lines. You can see this little parenthesis is here around the expression, and this expression here it says expression list. So we have here more differences than one. First, this round brackets, and we can have here a list, not only one expression, we can have more. So let's write this one here. Let's make this. So here is our target again, our int, and here we can have our expression list, or just one expression, or no expression at all. That's also possible. I think per definition, optional. Yeah. Yeah, I think this list is optional, but you have at least one expression here, I think, but not sure. So let's go on. You can see this one will also make the same thing. Let's print this fast out. Integer number 2. And yes, oops. Of course, I need this one as well. All right. And when I print this out, you can see both time it converts to our int number. One time with the C-style cast, one time with the functional cast. And because they look so similar, there are many people who say the C-style cast and the functional cast are the same. That's not true when we read here these explanations, because they are not the same. And let's start with this C-style cast, what this is. It says here, we have to read only this first sentence here a little bit. And it says here, when the C-style cast expression is encountered, the compiler attempts to interpret it as the following cast expression in this order. So first of all, it will try use a const cast, then if this not works, it will try to static cast, and so on. So why is this important? This is important. So here, for example, my C-style cast, let's write here C-style. Let's write here functional style. Oops, style. So you can see the compiler will try to do first here in my example a const cast. And const cast, we have already talked about a const cast. It's bad. You should only use a const cast in special cases when you want it. But here is no problem because we have no const keyword, constness in our type. So this one will be skipped. Then it will try to do a static cast, because the const cast worked not here, right? So the static cast will work here because we know the static cast can cast this one to this one, and then the compiler will stop in my example with the static cast. So there is no problem. If this would not work for another example, then it will try to use this other one here. So in here, you can see it will also try this reinterpret cast and so on. Important to note here is you can see we have to understand what a const cast is, what a static cast is, what a reinterpret cast is. With other words, this cast nodes in C++. And the next note is this cast is bad. Why is it bad? Because it starts with a const cast. Const cast, like I said before, you should normally make in special cases. And you should not try to make a const cast in the first attempt. Normally it's ignored, like in my example. You can see if there is not a const keyword, it is ignored. But if there is something with const, then it will try to do this one. And the question is, do you really want a const cast? Because const cast can cause problems. We have talked about this. So in general, C-style cast is danger. And only professionals or advanced people should use it because they know what this C-style cast is doing under the hood. We as a beginner, we are just trying to understand this cast nodes. We have not talked about all, we have not seen many examples, we have not seen many problems. So we should just try to avoid this style, or better even avoid both styles at start as a beginner. But why we are talking then about this both styles? The reason is very simple. We are talking about them because there are so many C++ codes outside programs which are using this C-style cast or this functional style cast, and you as a beginner still have to understand this. And when we go to the second example here, which is our functional style, let's read this one as well a little bit. It says here the functional style cast expression consists of a simple type specifier or a type def specifier. In all other words, a single word type name that is cases such as unsigned int, and this one is not valid. So here we have a little bit of change. So this one, the first one and the second one, they are not equivalent at this point, because here you have to use one single word type. Here you can use, here was this restriction not, here we have this restriction, right? All right, followed by a comma separated list of expression in parentheses. And here this comma separated list here is optional. You can use one expression, or you can use here more expression. But important is this second line here, which cause confusion of some programmers. They read something like this: if there is exactly one expression, so when we have only one here, expression in parentheses, this cast expression is exactly equivalent to the corresponding C-style expression, which means if you have just here one expression, one type like this one here, this one is one word, single word type. Okay, we have here a single word expression, and this is the condition when this one and this one are equivalent. Equivalent means they are treated the same. But what is the problem here? The problem here is that many programmers think they are in general equal. That's not the case. They are only equal under these conditions here. That's very important, that they follow this condition, then they are equal. If the functional style here has, for example, here more expression in this list here, they are not equal anymore. This is just violating one rule, right? And there are under the hood rules other rules which we will skip as a beginner, but important is that you understand they are not in general equal, but under certain conditions they can be equal. And that's it about what we want to know here, because this is already a discussion in general. And as a beginner, what you should know is you should just know that this kind of cast exists, and you should not use them. Instead, try to use this, because then you are training what the meaning of this casts are, and the C-style cast here is anyway using one of this keyword, this cast nodes here. So you have to understand them anyway, and it's better to use this one when you use it correctly. And like I said, if you go advanced and you already learned this one here, then you can also use C-style cast, because then you know what happens under the hood. But as a beginner, skip this, and even as advanced people use that one, because if you learned this one, then you know exactly what you are doing normally. All right. Let's go here a little bit down, and we have here a problem, and the problem is this one here. Why is the second one a problem? The problem is actually, you can see, let's go here to my example. Why is this one a problem? The problem here is this one looks similar to what? Yes, it looks similar to a function call, right? Because look what we have here. We have here an int, perhaps a return type. We have here an argument, I don't know, and perhaps an unnamed function. And this problem is also described here a little bit with this in different use cases, which you have to read yourself and try to understand. It says here, for example, ambiguity resolution. For example, we have here anything you can see when you read something like that. What is that? Here we have a struct. And then we here we have a m variable declaration. This is just a function. And now what is that? Without reading this one, it's what you would say. So instantly, when you read this, yes, you can see this is a declaration. But first, okay, we have this one is a type. This one is, I don't know, could be anything, an expression. And this looks similar to our cast, and this one cause problem. And when you try to understand this one, and yeah, you will see. And this confusion get here even more when you go to the second part here. The second part shows we have here a struct, a constructor, and here a function. And look, read this instantly without reading this one. Then you would say, okay, what we have here, this is perhaps a return type, perhaps. And of course, when you read this one, you know it is a return type because it's a function declaration. But this one looks similar to this one, right? Is this also a function? No, when you read this one, it's an object declaration. And yes, the point is here, this casting here cause really confusion when you are not careful, and this kind of stuff you have to train in exercises, because this works not with understand. Yeah, you have to understand it, but you have to train this in exercises so that you can distinguish them and how they are used. So this is a little bit exercise work. And I think that's it for our explicit typecasting. There are some examples, but these examples are, let's say, more similar to think what I did. You can see they created here a double, and they made here a C-style cast, and what they made here is here C-style. You can see C-style can use here this double words. This is not allowed here with this functional, because the functional style cast, if you are using something like this one with this, it is called invalid, like we saw here in this explanation. And that's why it's so important that you read here the rules. And yeah, conversion is an important topic, but you have to read the rules and make many examples to understand the rules, because just reading the rules will you will understand it, but the problem is you will probably not able to use it. And to understand it in practical use means you make exercises, thousands of them, and then you see how they are used, what problems, what errors they cause, and how you have to use other cars, or how you have to convert it right. Yeah, we will do this in future exercises. We make there, when I make again an exercise, we make there millions of casting and arrow checking and all this kind of stuff. But in general, you see, it looks so simple, but behind the scene there is so much theory about this little cast nodes here. All right, I think the other ones we can skip. Here is something interesting, has nothing to do with casting, has more something to do with classes, which I have not talked. But what is that here? We have already talked about this one here. This is a class forward declaration, right? But where is the class? There is no class here, and they are using it here. So what's the problem here? Is this allowed? This one. The answer is yes, it is allowed, and the reason for that is they are using just a type. They are saying, okay, I make here just a type conversion, but they are not using the class so content, and that's why it's allowed. But we will talk about this one also, not more in detail because it's already talked now, but we make some examples here too. All right, I think the other ones we can skip because they are using again other things which we have not talked so much in detail. And what we have here, yeah, this is again inheritance. Let's skip that. Yeah, they are inheriting here too much. All right, I think that's it for C-style cast, and we are finishing actually casting. There are still more conversions. Like I said, there's something like a user-defined conversion. When I go down, is this here? Yeah, there is a user-defined conversion, and there are even constructor conversions and many different things. So the conversion goes on, but we are finished now with our casting as a basic understanding. Important is in general that you understand static cast. This is the standard cast which many use. Then dynamic cast is also very important, because later when we have inheritance, they are using this one here for pointers and so on. We will talk this after we finished inheritance. This and this, let's say these two casts are more special, right? This one we have talked a little bit. This constness is only for casting away, and this one is, we will talk about this. Like I said, underlying bit pattern is a special rules there which we have to consider. And here the C-style cast, like I said, you have only to know first of all these two syntax here. Later there are more syntax which we have to cover, but yeah, in C-style cast it's important that you just know that this style exists and what it means in general. We as a beginner should avoid this. We should use this one here, and if you understand this one, you understand more or less the C-style too, because you can see under the hood it is trying to use exactly one of these casts here, which we should know then when we use something like that. But like I said, in many programs they use still C-style cast, or some use also this functional cast. That's why we are learning that. And yeah, the problem is this ambiguity resolution, which means that can cause really sometimes headaches, because you have to train. You can't see it instantly what it is. Then you have to hover your mouse over it to see what the type really is, and something like that. But yeah, with that said, we've finished now cast, and in our next video we will talk about the last keyword before we go back to classes, which is the new keyword. So if you have any questions or any suggestions, like all time, write it in the comments, and see you in the next video. Bye, good luck, and like all time, never give up and have fun.